Good evening and welcome to the January 15th, 2013 Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Samut.
Here.
Commissioner Chase.
Present.
Chair Mishra.
Here.
Vice Chair Biasotti.
Here.
And Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Chase.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, approval of the minutes from November 20th, 2012. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the minutes be approved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes are approved. Item number 2, communications. Staff.
We'd like to announce that the city has hired a new community development director. David Waltering comes to us with over 10 years of experience as a community development director in Northern California, most recently with the city of Clayton and Contra Costa County. So he has just joined our staff, and we'd like to welcome him, and I'm sure you'll be meeting him soon. We'd also like to point out that for those watching at home, the agenda and staff report are available online on the Planning Commission page at sanbruno.ca.gov. And information on the transit corridor plan is available at planbruno.org.
Thank you. Item number 3, public comment on items not on the agenda. If there are any members of the public who would like to address anything that is not on the agenda, now's the time. Public comment is open and closed. Announcement of any conflict of interest, commissioners?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall has a conflict for 317 Acacia, so he was available to attend the meeting, but since he was going to recuse himself from the only item, he is not here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 5, public hearings. First item is at 317 Acacia Avenue. This is a request for a use permit to allow the construction of a new home which increases the gross floor area of an existing home by greater than 50% and exceeds the 0.55 FAR guidelines per section 12230B1 and 12230B2 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you and good evening. As stated, the applicant has applied for a use permit to construct a new home that increases the gross floor area of the existing home by greater than 50% and exceeds the 0.55 FAR guideline. The site is located on the west side of Acacia Avenue. The site is 5,000 square feet, measuring 50 feet wide by 100 feet deep. The site was previously developed with a 2-story single-family dwelling. I would like to point out that a building permit was issued earlier this year, March of 2012, for dry rot and foundation repair. The scope of work was exceeded and a majority of the second floor was demolished. As such, more than 50% of the exterior walls were removed. Therefore, this is considered new construction. That triggers 2 things. It triggers fire sprinklers for the entire house. It also, the applicant will be subject to the Cal Green Tier 1 requirements. As stated, the proposal consists of construction of a 2-story home, which will consist of 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a 2-car detached garage. All in all, there will be 2,470 square feet of living area with a 425 detached garage. The Architects Review Committee reviewed the project at their December meeting. At that meeting, they did forward the project onto the Planning Commission with 2 specific recommendations. One recommendation was to increase the distance between the detached garage and the back edge of the home. The other recommendation was to ensure that the front porch steps were not encroaching into the front setback area. Since that time, the applicant has updated the plans and has incorporated both recommendations. As stated, a use permit is required for this project as the proposal results in more than 50% expansion and exceeds the 0.55 FAR guideline. Staff does find that the proposal is consistent with the neighborhood, and we do find that it is consistent with the residential design guidelines. The applicant has incorporated a number of facade articulation techniques that are outlined within the residential design guidelines. Specifically, they have set back in the second story from the first story below. Additionally, they are incorporating a number of exterior materials which help break up the mass of the structure. The first floor will consist of hardy plank horizontal siding. The second floor will consist of hardy plank shingles. And the front elevation, the top portion of the front elevation will consist of hardy plank board and batten finish. The proposal meets all other development standards of the zoning district. I would also like to point out that the applicant will be reusing the front porch, so we do find that adds additional architectural interest and helps break up the mass from the front elevation further. Staff did send a courtesy notice and the required 300-foot notice. We did meet with the adjacent property owners. Really, they just want to learn more about the specific entitlements that were being proposed before us tonight. Additionally, they want to go over the approval process, and staff also reviewed the residential design guideline requirements. Overall, they were supportive of the design and recommended and supported the project. Overall, staff supports the proposal, and we do recommend that the Planning Commission approve the use permit request subject to findings of fact 1 through 7 and conditions of approval 1 through 27. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
When you were describing the demolition that was done after the March 26th permit, you mentioned the entire second story was demolished, but you didn't mention anything about the first story. Does that mean the report is wrong?
A portion of the first story does remain, so the front porch remains and 2 sidewalls currently remain as well today.
So the majority of...
The majority of the home has been demolished.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Is the applicant present? Could you take the podium? State your name and and tell us about your project.
My name is Jason Tran. I'm the representative of Maria Tam, who is the property owner of 317 Acacia Avenue. And I'm here today to give you a little bit of the, Matt have present the proposed project. The only 3 things that I'd like to point out is that this existing house is a Dutch Gambier colonial style, built in 1907. And what we're proposing is a similar architecture house. And there's 3 important points that I'd like to point out. That is, number 1 is we are salvaging, as Matt mentioned, the existing porch, because we think that would signify and also a demarcation of the original house. So that's one reason that we like to salvage that porch and integrate that to the proposed structure. And at the same time, as Matt mentioned again, it also helped breaking up the mass and give a better proportion to the main elevation, which we, as architects, we like to see that more often for new development. Secondly, the second floor originally was not habitable anyway, and we were actually going to propose to replace the second floor because the gambrel structure is too low on both ends. So when you're actually in the bedroom to the outside edge of the building, it's only 6'6" tall, and half of the room is under, according to the new code, is not habitable space, because the new code requires that you need a minimum of 7'6" for a habitable space. So we are proposing to replace that with a simple gable roof, and it's also in alignment with the existing surroundings. And thirdly is the proposed structure is also in alignment and respects the surroundings by using the similar materials, as you mentioned, the sidings, the hardy board, and the shingles. So I like to make sure that, you know, we are respecting the surroundings and the original architecture of the house. And what we're proposing is in alignment with everything else. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Through the chair.
Yes.
There was a lot more demolition done than was permitted,
Yes.
which indicates, I think, is that because the contractor was out of control, or how did that happen?
My understanding.
I mean, it was more than you planned to do,
My
right?
understanding from, reported from my client is that there was an accident occurred at the site that forced the demolition to exceed what was permitted. So what that means, I don't know the whole detail of the incident. Did that answer your question?
No.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Based on our previous conversation, so that everyone knows, you came into this project much later after that construction had been, or deconstruction had been done, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Excuse me. The staff aware of what occurred in the accident, or, I mean, was it, it sounds kind of vague, that's why I'm just
Yeah, so what that signified was it actually forced the planner to go into the discovery of the existing house, whether there's other historical significance, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what that did was we actually had the project on hold for a while so that Matt can do his diligence and go into the exercise of discoveries, and you can chime in.
I'm kind of curious, is that the same way as the
So
one?
to answer your first question, I'm unaware of why the home was demolished. All I know is that the second floor was demolished. I don't know the specific reason why. Due to its age and architectural characteristics, staff did prepare a request for proposal. We received various proposals from historic consultants to analyze the project. It was analyzed, and it was determined that the pre-existing structure was not subject or was not eligible for listing on the California Register.
Thanks.
I have a couple questions for the applicant.
Yes.
A couple of your green features.
Yes.
One of them is the rooftop PVs.
Yes.
I don't see that on the plans. Were you going to indicate where they are going to be located, whether they're going to be tilted or they're going to follow the slope of the roof?
Most likely it's going to follow the slope of the roof.
Okay.
Yes, right now we're still exploring that option.
Okay, so you haven't quantified as to how much PVs you'll be putting on this property?
That's correct.
Okay. The second question was that I don't see any space for a water heater, so are you planning on installing a
There is actually
on demand?
There is actually a water heater space right next to the washer, which is on the first floor, right behind the bathroom.
behind the bathroom? Oh.
Right adjacent or across from the bathroom, there is a water heater and the washer dryer stack.
Okay. So you're not planning on installing any instantaneous
Not at
water
this
heater?
point. No.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
It actually says that in the area you talked about, it says furnace and washer dryer.
And that's that's where the water heater is going to be as well, for the.
In the exact same place that you already have two other pieces of equipment, or three other pieces?
There's a washer dryer, and then there's the furnace, and then in that same location is where we're gonna propose to put a water heater
In the closet?
in the closet. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't you have to separately enclose the water heater?
Yes. So there's also another closet right adjacent to that. Okay, let me look at this.
There's two closets across from each other.
Yeah, so there's a closet right next to the washer dryer.
Right.
That could be the place for the water heater.
So you're going to sacrifice the entire closet space for the water heater?
We can work something out there, yes. Again, this is very conceptual, so once we get into more development of the plans, we can finalize all the auxiliary spaces that require for that.
Okay, thank you.
I also see the last paragraph, the second last paragraph on your statement that says that you'll be exploring other sustainable measures as time goes on. One being the tankless water heater.
Yes.
More efficient forced air unit. So one thing I would say is you can definitely put the tankless water heater outside the house.
Sure.
It'll actually save you in efforts trying to route the fluid through the property. Though, you know, I do want to note in here that describes the intent of the photovoltaics to follow the slope, because I think it will harm the architecture of this building if it's sticking up.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that the photovoltaics still follow the roof line.
Through
And-
the chair.
Yes.
We have limited ability under state law to dictate the appearance of photovoltaic systems. And so we're limited in what we can do. So we can certainly reflect that that's our intent, but I don't think we would be able to require them to do so.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Through the chair, just a quick question for staff, and I know I should know this, but as we were just discussing the area in which the water heater may or may not be installed, when we're, you know, looking at the project and we're looking at the plans and we're voting on this one way or another, my understanding was we should pretty much always know where everything is, and not that it's going to, you know, possibly be here or possibly be there. I mean, I understand building, you know, things, you know, they kind of get moved a little bit, but that just seems to me to be a bit vague. I mean, am I off base on this, or has it just been this long since we've had a meeting that?
Again, it depends on the system, right? It depends on whether it's tankless or tank water heater.
Right.
So that's still an option that we're exploring. And, you know, we can approve one way or the other. What I'm trying to say is you can approve, or we can identify that closet or dedicate that closet for a tank water heater. But as we move forward, you know, my clients say, hey, I might want an instantaneous hot water heater. You know, in that case, then that proposed plan or approved plan is no longer applicable. So again, you know, I don't think it's a major issue.
No, I'm not saying it's a major issue, but I'm just trying to be clear so that in my mind I know what I'm going to be voting on, so that I don't want to vote on something that I'm not sure of.
Okay.
So is that
Fair enough.
is that pretty much?
Staff would normally be looking for the plans that are before the Planning Commission to address all of the zoning issues in the municipal code. And so sometimes the equipment is going to move from one place to another. And as they go through the process of doing their construction drawings, especially in order to comply with Tier 1, sometimes they are going to have to make some alterations.
And
But an
those-
example of the kind of thing we would be looking for example, would be like the washer and dryer, because we wouldn't normally allow them to move the washer and dryer into the garage and then block the required parking. So staff is normally going to look for certain things that impact the zoning code and look closely for those things and make sure they comply.
As
So
it
that
comes
would
back-
normally be our expectation.
And as it comes back to me now, I would assume that the building inspector, as things are going along, would obviously. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. You can take your seat.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm going to open up public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or voting.
I have a question for staff, through the chair. The first thing in the report describes the demolition permit scope of work was grossly exceeded. And during the meeting tonight, it's not possible to tell why that happened. but it looks like the contractor was out of control. Does the city have some reason or some idea as to how the city will know that the contractor will be under control when it builds the project and it won't be substantially different than these plans?
I think the best answer to that question is that the construction of the new home is going to require many inspections every step of the way. And so our building inspectors will be out on the site and reviewing every aspect of construction. That is somewhat different than the original permit for this project, which was related to foundation repair and termite damage and those types of things, where you'd have very limited inspections and oversight. We wouldn't expect a contractor to go so far out of scope on something where the building inspector is on site regularly.
Thank you very much. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, do I have a motion?
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
I will make a motion we approve use permit 12-008 based on findings of fact 1 through 7, conditions of approval 1 through 27.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved. There's a 10-day appeal period. Great. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 6, discussion, city staff discussion.
Volunteers for the next architectural review committee meeting? Rick, Suge.
Excuse me.
Do
Through the
we have
chair.
a third?
Is that on Valentine's Day?
It is.
Cancel.
Any volunteers for the third spot?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? City? No. Planning Commission discussion?
Nice to have a meeting.
I do have one. At our last meeting, we spoke about several issues that have been outstanding. And I refer back to Commissioner Marshall's comment about the one-way lane. And I wanted to add it to the agenda as a rolling item so we know that there was action taken upon that item. And, it's not something that he remembers 3 months or 6 months down the line and there's no status update. The second one, I believe, Commissioner Samud brings up the issue of the cart, the roach coach on El Camino.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like we have a resolution so that we can close those issues out. I'd like to add those items as outstanding items on the agenda. So if you have status updates, we can actually move past those issues. I know if I go back several meetings, I can find some of Commissioner Peterson's comments as well, and I'd like to get those captured.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Obviously, I guess we'll be meeting our new Director of Community Development soon, I would assume. So at the next meeting, will we also be able to get an update on any of the other projects that are, ongoing? See what the status is on those?
On that same note, I did want to ask about the Treetops project. It was supposed to be occupied last July, but it's still vacant.
It is. I know that they've run into problems in regards to the construction, but I personally don't know the details here tonight, so we'll definitely provide you a detailed update at the next meeting and put those items on the agenda for follow-up as well.
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Also, at Crystal Springs Apartments, we approved a office and rec center. And I see they've started some work, but they're moving very slowly. Maybe if we can get an update on that one as well, that would be good.
Okay.
Please.
Anything else with staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner?
Could I ask staff to take a look at, if you probably may know about it or not, but I think it's on the corner of 4th and Pine, is a home that is obviously running a limo service out of it, and the entire front of the house is concrete and fenced now, where the cars are parked up on inside the fencing. And then there are a couple of cars that are parked out on the street as well. So I don't know if any neighbors have complained about it or not, but I notice it coming in and out of the city. And,
Okay, we'll check into it.
thank you.
One final comment.
Okay.
At what meeting will we be, not to get rid of Sush as a chair, but, you know, is that going to be our February? Is that going to be March?
The rotation will be at the next meeting.
Okay.
So subtle.
I said I didn't want to get rid of you. You're doing a great job. Are you kidding?
All right, with that,
You can run again.
me.